Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. At this point, it's our tradition to go around and introduce ourselves to each other. And we always have the dilemma of how do we avoid this sounding like mustering the troops? So this morning, I just paused long enough. So it's an introduction. You're introducing yourself to the community here. So give yourself a few seconds so that we can all appreciate the glory and that is you. So I'll begin that. I'm Marvin Snow.
Peter. Douglas. Mark. Joe. Jay. Chris.
Tom Thurston. Ruth Golden.
Cass Brayton.
Peter.
Kay Matsuda.
Gary.
Michael.
Rich.
Mark Philly.
Andre. Robert.
Lee.
My name is Marty.
Rick.
Harley.
I'm Richard.
I'm AJ. I'm Warren.
I'm Richard.
I'm Flint.
Adrian.
David Axel.
Jim Stewart. Jerry Jones.
John.
Tom.
Tom Moon. My name is Mark Cow.
Joe.
Bill Childs.
Roy. Robert. George.
Jim.
Milo.
I'm Carl Wolf.
My name is Greg.
Anthony.
My name's David Lewis.
I'm Alzak.
Bill.
Charlie.
Brent.
Joe Good. Good. Mark.
Is that everyone?
Janosch.
Anyone here for the first time or returning after a long absence? You know, raise your hand.
My name is Tom. I'm here till September, so it's nice to be back.
Great. Welcome.
My name is Joe Nakamura. This is my first time here.
Welcome, John. Anyone else? Yes?
Janosch. First time here.
Good. Welcome. And if there's no one else here for the first time, I'll introduce the speaker today, Eugene Cash. Tremendous turnout to hear Eugene. Eugene is the founding teacher of SF Insight and the San Francisco Insight, the well-known San Francisco Insight meditation community. SF Insight is dedicated to offering the teachings of the Buddha as they develop in the West and offers classes, meditation retreats, and other events. He teaches at Spirit Rock and leads meditation retreats internationally. Both Burmese and Thai streams of the Buddhist Theravada tradition, as well as Zen and Tibetan Buddhist practice, influence his teaching. Eugene also practices in a school of spiritual investigation and self-realization developed by A.H. Almaas, known as the Diamond Approach. And with that introduction, Gene, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. My apologies for being a minute or two late this morning, but it was actually really lovely to just walk in and everybody was very quiet and come sit with you. I didn't bring a prepared talk. I give a lot of talks these days, and and that's fine. It's good to give talks. It's good to prepare talks, but especially when I come to a group, I haven't been here in quite a while, maybe a year, maybe more. So, and I just thought it might be much more interesting for us to have more of a discussion style, because I learn a lot more about who I'm speaking to, and I think I could be more useful in that way than just speaking to one topic for, 40 minutes or something. So I'll give you two options about how we might do this. One option is we make up a talk together. And I do this pretty regularly with my sitting group, which is I'll ask you for topics, and you'll give me 8 or 10 or 12 topics, and then I'll take a minute to organize myself around the topics, and then I'll give you a talk based on your topics. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of a co-creation. And then, of course, the other option is simply to do questions and answers, which I really like a lot these days, or questions and responses might be a better way to say it. We'll see if they're answers or not. But what I like to ask people when they consider doing this style of learning or exploring together is to really think about what would be most vital for you, what would be most juicy for you, what would be most relevant for you. Like if I was coming to teach and you were the person who said what got to be talked about, or was most important to you, what would you want to hear? And I think that's a really good way to reflect on what question might be important for you. And when we do this style, the more question discussion style, everybody has to have at least one question or area that they want to hear about. So, but first you get to vote. What do you want? You want to do the co-creative talk or the even more interactive form? So, people who want the co-creative talk, raise your hand. Okay. Let me just really see. Okay, now how many people want the more discussion style? Okay, I think it's the talk. Okay. So the same question applies. What would be most vital for you? What would be most meaningful for you, for me to speak to? And to really consider that, or juiciest, or, we even, in the Zen tradition, and also in the Tibetan tradition, there's sometimes what's known as Dharma combat. So you could even give me the hardest topic you think that there is, if you want to do like Stump the Teacher or something. Please.
I've recently been doing a little bit of studying about ancient Egyptian culture, and most particularly, King Tut and his father, Akhenaten, who was considered the first monotheist, and in Africa, of course. And so the issue around, I'm going to be doing a talk on the 3rd on diversity, and as we are a Sangha of gay men, we've had certain experiences growing up, and somewhat of an unwelcome culture at times. And so it's of interest to me, from your perspective, about this issue of diversity. Mm-hmm. Certainly, Jack Kornfield says the core wound in our society is the issue of racism. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of interested in issues related to, or just like, when is the first time you came to realize that there was a difference in race, sex, sexual orientation, and inequality?
The last piece in I'm not sure about
inequality.
Oh, inequality.
Stratification.
Yeah.
class,
Yeah,
race.
sure. Great. Thank you.
I've been struggling with boredom in my practice in general, and just getting tired of myself. I'm just sick of myself. It's not like a terrible kind of self-hate, but it's more it's just I think eating too much of the same food or something. That kind of experience.
Okay. Boredom and self-boredom. So I'll try not to be too boring today. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to hear your talk yesterday at Spirit Rock about spiritual friendship. I was very disappointed I couldn't. I would really hope you spend a few minutes talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, we had a lovely day. Please.
Hi, I'm new here and I'd like some information on how to incorporate the calmness and serenity that comes from meditation into the everyday life.
Okay.
I was interested in your thoughts about intention in practice and out of practice and how to fortify that, and just sort of the difference between being lazy and intent. I've heard teachers refer to like stupid practice versus very intent practice.
Okay. It's a different quality of practice.
Yeah, and how to really kind of push that forefront in your in and out of practice.
Okay. Let's see if we're stupid or wise here.
I'm trying to understand how to be more present in my meditation amidst the turmoil of my mind.
Okay, great.
In similar ways, how do you sort of straddle or hold new insights without being overly attached, whether it's just during the sitting or just your daily thing of developing some new idea, and then presence versus attachment?
Okay. Maybe one or two more.
Fear and safety and hiding out and how they go together.
Okay. Fear, safety, hiding out. How they go together. Okay.
How do Zen and Vipassana practices go together in your practice?
Zen and Vipassana. Okay. Okay, one more.
Yeah, how does the Diamond Heart approach amplify or moderate Buddhist teaching?
Okay. Okay. So I'd like to start with where I was yesterday, which is we taught a day on spiritual friendship. And the term in Pali is Kalyanamita, spiritual friend. And it's woven, it's woven through the Buddha's teachings, the truth of spiritual friendship. And one of the forms it takes is this form. That's what we're doing here today. We're being spiritual friends. It's one of the ways that Sangha, or community, is described as friendship. And if you read the text, it's emphasized in this way, where the Buddha is speaking to Ananda, and Ananda is his cousin and his attendant for the last 20 years of his life, and he also plays his foil in the mythology of Buddhism. So Ananda is kind of always saying the wrong thing, and then the Buddha gets to correct him and give the teaching in that way. And so Ananda says, oh, this good friends, these admirable friends, these good camaraderie, this is half of the holy life. And the Buddha says, not so, Ananda, not so. This good friends, admirable friends, camaraderie, this is the whole of the holy life. And that really emphasizes how important friendship is, spiritual friendship. And it's the whole, if you've ever been in the monastic community, 80% of the practice is community practice. Meditation's an important, essential grounding, but you're working together, you're living together, you're being community together. And so the friendship is very important, the goodwill, the kind-heartedness, the authenticity, the emphasis on being real, on respect, on love, on generosity, compassion. The community doesn't work without those, and especially a community where the mind and heart are sensitized by the lack of what we would call normal engagements, right? Computers, newspapers, love, sexual relationships, work in the sense of going out to a job and being involved in the, quote, the world in the usual sense that we all are. When you take all that away, as you do when you come on retreat, you start to feel how heightened the senses get. And by senses, I mean all the senses, but also the heart and the mind. And so if there isn't some ground in community, in friendship, you feel it. It's difficult. So the emphasis on friendship and the appreciation of friendship and the power of friendship is well known in the traditional monastic setting and in the Buddhist teachings itself. The day we did yesterday, I especially wanted to do for two reasons. I was doing it with my friend Frank Ostaseski, who is the founder of Zen Hospice Project. We've been friends and practicing together for some 20 years or so, a little over. And one of the things I've seen as a teacher is that if people don't have friends they can talk to about their practice and about what's happening for them and about their meditation and about how things are impacting them in terms of their dharma, in terms of their spiritual life, it's much harder to practice, to develop, to mature. That a friendship, and I feel blessed in this way, that somehow that's come very easily for me, and I actually didn't know that actually many people don't have that until I started teaching, and then especially when I teach the senior students program, which is a 2.5-year program at Spirit Rock, and the hunger for communication about what the heart loves the most which is freedom, the Dharma, liberation, wholeness, whatever love, whatever word you want to put on it that brings you here. The import of communicating about what our heart loves the most just can't be underestimated. And those friendships are invaluable. It's invaluable to have people we can speak to, that not just speak to, we can be real with. And this is the other, one of the emphases of spiritual friendship. We really, we were discriminating a little bit conventional and spiritual, but it's an artificial convention. Ultimately, we're using that just to highlight certain parts, that certain aspects that we find very important, both in our friendship, Frank and I, and then also that is beneficial for students. And just the two key pieces, I would say, is one is that our friendship is bigger than Frank and I, right? So a spiritual friendship is about the two people, but it's also about the friend with a capital F, as the mystical poets often talk about the friend. And by the friend here, we mean the Dharma, we mean awakening, we mean liberation. That our friendship is in the service of awakening, and that we support each other, and we help each other, and we love each other, and we care about each other. And we also, the two of us, it's like a little bit like having a menage a trois. You have the third there too. And the third is really important. You love that. There's a shared love. And the shared love is the Dharma and awakening. And so that becomes the basis for what we're calling spiritual friendship. Or maybe it might be much more appropriate to just say mature friendship, or friendship in the community of the Dharma. And that, there's a subset of all kinds of qualities that arise of care and love and companionship and intimacy. That's different than being in an intimate relationship with someone, a lover, or a mate, or a partner. And then also the other emphasis we had was about authenticity, being able to be real, to be ourselves, and the freedom that brings, and that the freedom that's implied in actually being ourselves. I'm not a really great writer, but I wrote one line that I really liked. I wrote, "Buddha became Buddha by being Buddha." One of those little Zen teachings. But really what's implied is he was totally himself. He was totally himself. I'll say one more piece about spiritual friendship, just because there's a lot here, which is the mutual influence. That when there's spiritual friendship, there's we let people influence us. Actually, people are influencing us all the time. But here, the influence is in the service of the Dharma, in the service of awakening. And I've watched it with my friends who I've practiced with. They have an insight, they understand something. Maybe I don't even understand it, but it starts working on me. And especially if there's not the defensiveness or the sense of competition, which is, of course, also part of spiritual friendship. We did a whole piece about competition because Frank and I have been very competitive on Vipassana retreats together. Do you know how to do that on a Vipassana retreat? Who can eat slower? Who can walk slower? Right? I nailed him in the eating. So that's a little picture of what we were talking about, and what I think is extremely important, to have one person you can talk about your meditative experiences with. Maybe more, but at least one person that you can say, not only the oh, I had, this happened, this insight, this unfolding, this realization, but also this contraction, this feeling inadequate, this feeling deficient, the whole span of what we go through as human beings, because the speaking of it is part of the letting go of the freedom that can come, that everything can come and go. And the speaking, the communicating, very, very helpful, I believe, and has been my experience. One of the great sufferings is when we don't have that, right? When we don't have friendship, when we don't have camaraderie, when we don't have that style of love. And, and of course that includes a sense of, like for Frank and I, we've practiced and worked together and been friends together and played together for a long time and fought together and struggled together and got pissed off at each other. And, the whole human experience. We were very careful about not idealizing. But there was a container there. There was a container of friendship and love that allowed all of it to happen. When there's not a sense of inclusion, there's suffering. When there's not a sense of belonging, there's suffering. And so diversity, the question of diversity, especially in our time and place, is a preeminent question, both in the society, but also as a Buddhist community. Because all the same suffering that the society has, we bring in here. We carry this. We carry racism. We carry homophobia. We carry heterophobia. We carry whatever it might be, patriarchal traditions, hierarchical traditions. And so they're ours to work with. They are our practice. And this is one of the misunderstandings I think people make, is that they start separating out, oh, this is practice and this is politics, or this is practice and this is psychology, or this is practice and this is diversity. I don't make those divisions. If there's suffering, there's practice. If there's freedom, there's practice. That's what we're looking at. And so we're looking at it personally, we're looking at it interpersonally, we're looking at it sexually, we're looking at it culturally, we're looking at it racially, we're looking at it international. Where are the boundaries? Where do we cut off? Where do we create a sense of self and other? And how does that happen? And why? And what happens if we don't? Those are some of the questions that then start to go in practicing or exploring this question that we call diversity. And I think of it two ways. I think of conventional diversity and essential diversity. And I think both are extremely important. And what I'm echoing here when I speak about diversity in this way is a teaching in Buddhism called the Two Truths. It's different than the Four Noble Truths, which are about suffering and freedom from suffering. The Two Truths are about relative and absolute reality. That there's a relative reality and there's an absolute reality, or ultimate is probably a better translation, ultimate reality. Let's see if I can give you a simple example of what that means. It means there's a sound, there's a sight, there's a taste, there's a touch, there's the knowing of it, and it's all happening spontaneously, effortlessly, and there's actually nobody there who it's happening to. That's ultimate. That's a little picture of what we could call ultimate reality. Relative reality means when that red sight comes, you stop the car. Right? Relative reality means, oh, there's a street and there's a red light, and that it all has meaning. So on one hand, there's the unity of reality displaying itself, and the way it displays itself is through the relative. And this is the relative. Here we are. We're living in the world of the relative, and the world of the relative displays this is where the absolute is found, is through the relative. And so when I start talking about relative and absolute diversity, I mean, there is suffering caused in the many various ways that we define and discriminate, whether it's through gender or sexuality or race or religion or tribe or area or etc. And then there's also and this is really a new area I've been contemplating, is essential diversity, which is actually seeing the uniqueness of each being. That there is a diversity here that's beyond any more global definition. And I think both are really, really important. And this is very important to know about relative and ultimate reality in the teaching in Buddhism, is one does not negate the other and one is not better than the other. They're actually equal. Relative reality is not like less. It sounds a little bit less. It's actually not less, because it is where awakening happens. One of my teachers would always say, he'd say, the whole Dharma sits in your seat. The whole Dharma sits, that means liberation is already sitting in your seat. It's not coming from far away, from a mountaintop, it's actually right here. And when I say essential diversity, what I'm saying is it's going to come through you in a slightly different way than it came through the Buddha. In a slightly different, because your history is different, your genes are slightly different. There's uniqueness, and all you have to do is look around the room to see the uniqueness of each being. In terms of relative diversity, it's such a big topic. I think I feel that it is an opportunity for us to bring the principles of love and compassion and wisdom to bear on a certain kind of social suffering, and that we have the opportunity to change the world. And I think it's a very exciting part of Buddhist practice at this point. And I don't think it's an easy area. I think that the fears and the habits and the histories and the suffering for everybody is very deep. And that if we can respect that and learn how to ground ourselves in the present, then we can begin to sit in that fire. And it's a fire. There's too much pain for it not to have difficulty to it. And the most important thing I've learned about diversity so far is being willing to go outside of one's comfort zone. To really see what is another person, and in this sense, culture, race, community based on whether it's gender or preference or whatever it might. How are these people experiencing their lives? And to just try to sit in their seat or to live in their thoughts or through their eyes a little bit and see what that's like. And then to see, what have I been assuming, and especially as a white, straight male, what have I been assuming without knowing I was assuming it? And that's very freeing. And so in that sense, it's, on one hand, people kind of think of diversity as, oh, we're just doing a good thing for those people. And I don't see it that way. I'm interested in my freedom and liberation. And I mean on every level. And I really love the Izumi Shikibu poem. I don't have it perfectly in my mind, but with apologies, she says, gazing at the moon, mid-sky, midnight, I knew myself completely, no part left out. No part left out. My understanding of liberation is no part left out. It means every area of our life, the most personal, the most universal, the most social, they're all, if our liberation isn't complete, then it's not complete. And that's an area of practice then. And again, I feel an exciting area of practice. And I have to say, I'm really excited about the new, and I'm about to switch roles at Spirit Rock. I've been teaching the Dedicated Practitioners program for many years, and we're actually just launching the new one. But I'm going to step out of it in 2010, and I'm helping to facilitate what's called the Community Dharma Leaders program, and we're revisioning that whole program, which trains sitting group teachers, day-long teachers, beginning class teachers around the country. And part of that re-envisioning has to do with diversity, with community building, with areas that we weren't so skillful with at first. We didn't know. We're very young in the Dharma here. In the white Dharma, or the non-immigrant Dharma in America. I'll say that's more accurate. We're very young. 35 years is nothing. 40 years is, we're babies. And so we're learning as we go. So diversity is practice, is my understanding. And then there were many other questions about practice. The intention to practice, when to push, when not to push. Here's the quote I like about pushing. When I was young in the Dharma, there was a quote they'd say on retreats, which is, practice as if your hair is on fire. And I like that quote. It's a little macho and young, and I'm going to, sit, until my legs fall off and all that stuff. And I did a bit of that. I know how to do that. And it's good to know, and it's good when you're young. But as you get a little older, it's another area of diversity, right? Aging. It's not so good, I found, for the life of the long-term life. That didn't work, that kind of, I'm just going to mule through at whatever it is. And later I found the actual quote from, can't remember his name, Chinese master, like 7th century, and he said, when the mind itself is peaceful and pure, then there is bold advance as if to save your head from fire. And so what he's suggesting here is when you're actually relaxed, calm, centered, present, then you make your advance. But if you're not there, then the movement is to actually relax, take it easy, or learn how to, and this is a really important part of practice which addresses a few of these, which is about samadhi, which is about how to develop or nourish a sense of well-being in your meditation. And the word samadhi is generally translated as concentration. It's an adequate translation. A better translation would be a unification of body and mind. And samadhi also has these qualities of both composure, gatheredness, relaxation, unity, groundedness, and there are certain skills in the meditative art that promote that and will support that. It's a little bit, I couldn't remember whether you had a silent sitting or not, so I gave a teeny bit of instruction. My apologies for that. But the instruction I gave were samadhi instructions. We're like, okay, get here. And then if you learn how to do that, a sense of well-being can grow out of that. And then if you want to push, that's the place to push from. If you're being lazy in practice, then I think or what we would call lazy, I don't even believe in that, probably because I'm totally lazy in practice. Then the question is, it's not so much, oh, you should practice more. It's an investigative question. Well, what's happening for me in my practice? Am I bored? If I'm bored, well, then there's a couple ways to practice with boredom. The first way is to be bored and start to be mindful of boredom. It's a very important mind state to pay attention to. That mind state runs our economy. It's like anything but being bored. Don't, TV, video, computer, newspaper, movies, sex, drugs, rock and roll, everything. Don't be bored. Is that for me? No, you'll know that I am totally liberated when I have my cell phone and it rings during a Dharma talk and I answer it. I've only seen this happen once. And it was Ajahn Jumnian, who's been practicing about 60 years now. And he just pulled out his cell phone in Thai. He's talked to the person. He said, "Oh, I can't talk now. I'm in the middle of the Dharma talk. I'll call you later." And then he goes right out. No sweat, nothing. So I'm not there yet. But boredom is so important as a mind state. Well, don't assume we know what boredom is. When it's here, actually pay attention to it. And usually if you really pay attention to boredom, you'll find there's a few things, and not limited to these, you'll find inattention or you'll find irritation. One of those two. And then if you can allow that, be mindful of being inattentive. Why not? Be mindful of being irritated. Be mindful of being bored. And see what happens if you really get present with the boredom, rather than think the boredom's a problem. The second piece is a more inquiry or investigative piece, which is what are you doing in your practice? What's working and not working? Maybe something's not happening, and so one wants to know that so one can respond appropriately. Maybe something needs to change. One of the mistakes that I know I made early on, and that I think people make, is assuming one way of practicing is just going to last for their whole life of practice. That's too idealistic. There's sometimes when I sit every day, and then there's been long periods where no, that's not what's happening in the life of the practice. It doesn't mean the practice isn't alive. Or there's some times where I've done, certain styles of Vipassana, and that's all I've done. And then other times where no, I actually let that go totally into I've done a whole other style, because it had lived its life for me for that time, and then it actually wasn't working. And that it's helpful to have a teacher to talk to, or teachers to talk to about that, but to begin to explore, what do you, also this question is very helpful always, which is, what do you want? What do you want? Don't be afraid of that question in the Dharma. Because different wants will come, and they're not, sometimes I just want to be free, but sometimes I want to know how to practice with grief. Right? That becomes a more preeminent question. And if I'm thinking, I have to just worry, freedom's all that's important, and I'm trying to overlook what's more vital in the moment to my heart, it actually won't work so well. That we have to stay attentive to what's alive for us now in practice. And then, It's a big topic, but boredom then becomes a doorway both to being mindful to boredom and to what's going on in your practice. And as I was saying, this kind of samadhi that I value very, very much, also will support. Somebody asked about being more present in meditation with the mind. Who said that? Yeah. So one of the things, and this is why I love mindfulness of the body, if you just go to your body, you'll come out of your mind. Or it's almost like your mind can do what it wants. You don't have to go along with your mind. And so this is one of the, it's also a somewhat cultural movement, which is the movement towards embodiment. And that will ground both your suffering and your freedom in a great way. That we need to get here. We need to get here in these bodies. This is talked about in Buddhism as precious human birth, right? This human form. And there are many reasons why we've become disembodied. You know, Allen Ginsberg, who is one of my teachers and whose poem How had just a huge effect on me as a young man, as a boy really, and then a young man. He talks about being scared out of our bodies in that poem, and our bodies becoming like concrete, things like that. And it's happened. It happens because of all different kinds of reasons, familial reasons, some cultural reasons, absolutely around sexuality that's not accepted, that then having to go away. So part of our practice is actually just to get here. It's very simple. It's not easy necessarily, but it's very simple. Feel this. And right now, even as I'm talking, just feel your bodies. You'll understand me fine. See if you can keep kind of saturating the body with your consciousness, with your mindfulness. And the hearing will function as long as my voice is loud enough and your ears are working. Just like the seeing will function. You don't have to do the seeing and the hearing. Right effort here is just to feel, sense your body, your hands touching, your butt on the cushion, your temperature of your body, whatever it is, the density, the sense of bodiness. And that will ground you. That will keep grounding you in the Dharma. And will keep... it grounds us in something a little more palpable than the mind. And then it gives us a basis to really look at our minds. So that's one of the key pieces. And of course, grounding in the body and in the somatic, kinesthetic, physical reality is one of the great bases for samadhi practice. Because samadhi practice, in the way that I've studied with Thanissaro Bhikkhu in the lineage of Ajahn Damodaro, is a very sensual practice. I love to say that. It's very sensual. It's a turn-on. I just want to put that out. It's a carrot. It's very sensual. And it leads to deep levels of bliss, joy, satisfaction, contentment, and it's good. It's good, and it's supposed to be good. And you don't have to worry about getting attached to it. This is what's talked about as the wise use of pleasure in the meditative process. In fact, there's a kind of temporary attachment that's really good, because we start to find a sense of well-being in our own beingness, in our own consciousness, body and mind, that is so satisfying that we don't have to push away the world. It actually becomes easier to let go of the world. And by let go, I don't mean to dissociate from the world. I mean just not to be to see that there's a deeper happiness available right here, where we sit. And so I don't worry about getting attached to new insights. Who is that? There we go. I don't worry about getting attached to new insights. If you have a new insight and you love it, love it. Don't be afraid of that. If you get attached, you'll suffer. But if you love it, that's love. You can love it. You can love the Dharma as much as comes. Don't be afraid of loving freedom. Don't be afraid of loving the open heart or the sense of contentment. We don't need to be afraid of that at all. The Buddha I'm going to go 1 minute over. The Buddha in his seeking for realization was an ascetic, and at some point he's almost dead, and it's not working. It's not working. He has a lot of altered states, but he's not finding the freedom he sought. And then he has a reverie about being a young boy sitting in his father's rose apple tree grove, and he remembers this samadhi that he went into naturally there. And he remembers how pleasurable it was, how delicious it was. And he says, do I need to be afraid of this pleasure? And so he's doing some inquiry with himself. He's investigating. He's saying, do I need to be aware of this pleasure? And he says, and then the answer came, no, I don't need to be afraid of this pleasure. And then he says, could this be the way to enlightenment? And the answer comes, oh, this is the way to enlightenment. And that we're lucky. Otherwise, we'd all be living on 1 grain of rice a day, and emaciated, and, doing this intense, ascetic practice. This is how the middle way came about, is through his understanding that the goodness of what's here, we don't have to be afraid of what's here. That attachment is about attachment to things that are unskillful, and we can go with what's skillful. We can totally love what's beautiful and what's wholesome and what's good. And I'm going to stop. And I just want to thank you all. It's really a pleasure to be here and practice with you. And thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Time for announcements. Do we have a host?
I'm Cass. I'm your host. So please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. Connect with your spiritual friends and share the glory that is you. There are tea and refreshments. If you have some tea, please wash your cup. There's a sign-up list to get on the mailing list, both email and regular mail. And it's located beside the Dharma Bowl. So please feel free to share whatever you choose to meet the expenses of the Sangha. $5, $8, whatever works for you. And some people get together around 12:30 at the front door to go out to have lunch.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Bill. I pick up the group's mail, and I had a few announcements to make based on what we received this past week. In the circle of service and contributions, we were thanked for giving money to the Zen Center's Prison Correspondence Project, but we also received a contribution from, I can't pronounce this right, it's the Maitri KJ Gundavandina Association, and we also get regular contributions from Community Thrift, where we have like a donor account with them. And I received some alarming correspondence that we haven't generated enough contributions in the last quarter. And if you don't do enough with them for 2 quarters, they will drop their association with us. Right now, you can say that you can drop off a donation to Community Thrift and say that you'd like all proceeds to benefit the GBF. And in lieu of perhaps your next garage sale or Craigslist sale, you might take some used electronics or furniture or china, whatever, and donate it. But we had generated like $1,000 in contributions, I think, the prior year. So do think about it if your closets are overburdened. You wish to feed yourself with your material goods. Now's the time to do it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Can I make an announcement?
Oh, sure.
Well, just please come join us if you'd ever like at San Francisco Insight. We have 2 evenings, Sunday evening at the Unitarian Church from 7 to 9, and also Wednesday evening, Pamela Weiss teaches the Wednesday evening group. And then there's all kinds of programs happening, sfinsight.org if you're interested.
The speaker for next week is Eric Boucher, and he is the director of volunteer services and training at the Zen Hospice Project and Laguna Honda Hospital Hospice Volunteer Training Program. So he'll be here next week, and he's very excited about coming.
Yes, my name is Kay, and I'm the host coordinator at the GBF, and we currently have 1 vacancy on the hosting team, and the position involves bringing refreshment once every other month. So there's a suitable volunteering opportunity for not only for regular members but also the newcomers. So if you're interested, please let me know.
My name is Michael, and if you are interested in further exploring this idea of spiritual friendship, there'll be a great opportunity in September at our annual retreat. It's happening September 19th through the 21st at Vajrapani Institute, which is in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Registration materials should be available within a couple of weeks, both online and here. And if you have any questions, please ask. Thanks.
Yeah, following up with Michael's comment, another really great opportunity for spiritual friendship and deepening our practice is the annual LGBT retreat at Spirit Rock. This year it's a 5-night silent retreat, and many of us here have met over the years. This is probably the 12th or 13th year for this retreat, and it's a 5-night silent Vipassana retreat. And we're very lucky to have Irina Weissman back in the United States, who was, one of the early openly gay, lesbian Vipassana teachers, who's a wonderful woman, and Larry Yang are going to be co-leading this retreat. It's October 16th to the 21st, and it's sliding scale, and if you haven't been to the land on Spirit Rock, that alone it is worth the price of admission to spend 5 nights up there, but to be 5 nights with the LGBT community and our teachers is really quite amazing, deepening experience. So spiritrock.org is the website, and you can check on the calendar and get all the details. So I know all of us with our busy schedules, October will be here before we know it, but October 16th.
Any other announcements? Otherwise, we'll gather in a circle for our
May the merit or the goodness, the blessings of our practicing together, may we gratefully share it with all. May the power and energy of our practice go out in every direction, touching beings in every realm, in this world and every world. May all beings be happy and peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering, from the suffering of war and of fear and of division and racism, sexism and all the isms, from the suffering of greed and ignorance, confusion. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings awaken. May we awaken together. May we discover our true nature, our Buddha nature, the nature of wisdom and compassion, it be so.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.